Hello Internet, welcome back to Driving and Dragons. This is Daniel, and today we are going to hop right into one of the good old-fashioned tabletop role-playing game fab topics du jour. Just the little things that pop up that gets the world spinning, jump on that old clickbait train, try and get to those 1,000 subs with a little bit of popular heat, so to speak. We're going to talk about the Reddit post about the 44 rules for D&D and my thoughts on them, and we're going to run through them pretty quick because there's 44 of them and I don't want this video to be several hours long. Some news on our channel project car. I'm going to be pulling the valve cover off because I got to do the valve cover gasket and I need to adjust the valves and a few other things, get rid of that annoying tick. And since I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and polish down and paint the valve cover. And I'd like to hear some ideas from some folks down in the comment section about what I should do as far as the paint color, or if I should try and put some kind of logo or something on it. It's not super difficult to do, but I'm thinking black and gold to match the rest of the car. But, what do you guys think? What should I do as far as the valve cover? Video today, of course, is more of what was seemingly a never-ending quest to get that stupid stud out from the EGR valve. So lots of drilling. It's a good thing that I mute those background videos, otherwise it would be very much not advertiser friendly, as I just swear and curse and invent all kinds of new bad things to say about that stupid stud. But I did eventually get it out. Now let's move on. Let's talk about these 44 rules for D&D. I'm going to start with this, and the OP deleted it. I've heard some really unintelligent people come out and say, oh, this was clearly a player who was just trolling and going after a GM and talking about what bad GMs do. That's really asinine and stupid. What this probably is somebody who's a game master who was possibly even somebody who had just recently started running for their friends and was very quickly fed up with all the nonsense that players do. And to me, it kind of goes back to the great curse, my whipping boy, that I'm always jumping on, the entitled player syndrome that the modern day has given us. Players feel like they can just trample all over GMs these days. And, used to, it was, hey, we all agreed to do this. You're respecting everybody's time by, behaving in a certain way at the table, showing up on time, not being a jerk, etc., etc. And these days, a lot of these people feel like they're entitled to a game, and they're entitled to the game master's time. And I think somebody got a little sick of it and probably went a little tongue-in-cheek and a little aggressive, and it blew up in a way he didn't expect. So on each of these, I'm going to try and look for the piece that's worthwhile and, try to point out the exaggeration, maybe not take it exactly as written. So let's get started. Number one, I'm timing turns. I don't give a fuck if it's unfair in your opinion, because your spells are hard and you don't know what square to move to. You get 1 minute to know all actions and you want to take, or I skip your turn. Okay, I don't have a problem with this. Timing turns is not a problem. A round is 6 seconds in Dungeons & Dragons, 3 seconds in some other games, 10 seconds in some of the more generous ones. In real life, you don't get to sit around and think for 45 minutes and go back and forth with other players over strategy for 5 minutes before you decide what to do with your 6 seconds of time. Don't have a problem with that. Now, I don't think he's literally saying, hey, I'm going to pull out the sand timer and I'm skipping you in 1 minute if you have questions or you need clarification. This is more of a, look, figure out what you're going to do between actions in combat, instead of goofing off on your phone and then being like, oh, it's my turn? Well, let me see here. What do I need to do? Well, where is everybody? That's just rude to everybody at the table, and it kind of sounds like you're sick of it. 2, you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. Kind of sounds like one of these things, well, man, I really want things to be a little bit harder. It's like, well, okay, fine. You want to be harder? Well, I'm going to make it harder, and I'm going to kill you. Maybe he's just a little frustrated with somebody's complaints. 3, if you call me or my role's unfair, I'll get up and go home. If you got to ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. Do I honestly think he's going to bail on people at the table? No. Do I think he was saying that seriously? No. But the real point here is when I make a roll, especially as a game master, and the roll doesn't go in your favor, don't cry about it like I'm cheating you somehow because I called for a roll and you thought you should just get an automatic win, or I rolled and the monster got a critical hit and it didn't go in your favor. That's part of it. 4, I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as you want it given out. Rule 3 will apply here. Okay. This, I think, is a little more tongue-in-cheek. It's literally just saying, quit crying about always wanting loot, always wanting this, always wanting special magic items, want. It's like, look, if you don't quit crying and asking me to constantly give you stuff, I'm just going to take it away. 5, if you don't act out any of your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you fail before you even roll. You fail immediately because you aren't even trying and you're making the game lame for everyone else. This, to me, now, if you take this verbatim and literally, it's just asinine. Because not everybody really wants to act everything out specifically or whatnot. But to a certain extent, especially if you're ascribing to a storytelling style or a narrative gameplay, you can't just say, okay, I intimidate. Really, you intimidate? I'm not saying you have to act out what you do, but you should at least be like, I'm going to brandish my sword and put it under his chin and tell him that if he doesn't give me what I want, I'm going to run this thing through the back of his neck. Can I roll and intimidate? Or, I want to persuade the guard. I think I'm going to maybe try and feel him out and, talk about, some sick family members. Or maybe don't you really want to get back home to your family tonight? Maybe you should just let us pass and pretend we weren't here. It doesn't necessarily have to be acting class or verbatim, but you should at least give something for the DM to go with, because that does get really annoying, especially when it comes into the interrupting variety, when you're like, all right, I'm, the guards are up there, hey, roll intimidate. It's like, well, you haven't even let me finish setting the scene and telling you what the guards are doing. No, roll intimidate. So don't tell me what you're rolling. And I think it gets to that later. 6, if you don't pick up on cues for side quests, that's not my problem. Get over yourself. It's not a video game. It's a role-playing pen and paper game based with miniatures. I'm not holding your hand if you choose not to pursue shit. I feel this one. I feel this one deeply. There's nothing like setting out hook after hook after hook, and the players just ignore it, or they completely miss it. And they're like, well, why is there nothing else to do? Why can't I go do this? Couldn't this have been a side quest? Maybe it was a side quest, but you're too busy goofing off and playing on your phone and not paying attention and expecting everything to be handed to you that you get mad when you miss something. And it's hilarious because this is the same person who's going to cry about railroading. 7, if you move to a square in combat, there's no takebacks. I 100% agree with this. I mean, I'm not talking about, I misunderstood something wasn't quite there. I'm theater of the mind anyway. So a lot of times there's a situation where there's a misunderstanding. I thought you said this and you meant it this way. And really it's like, no, I was saying it was like this. And then you kind of have to give some takebacks. But you get these people who are like, okay, I want to go attack this orc and it doesn't play out their way. So, well, I didn't really mean I wanted to attack that orc. I need to come back. I meant to be here so that I'm not in range of this other person over here. I really wanted to go here, not there. Absolutely true. You take your action, you deal with your consequences. 8, you tell every single person that you're doing it before you do it. You don't fucking roll dice and then say you're casting fireball, you tell us all. This is just basic gamemanship. DMs call for rolls. And I have actually told my players before in the past, you don't roll unless I ask for it. You don't just roll attacks. You say, hey, I'm going to attack this guy. And I say, all right, roll to hit and damage. I want to cast fireball. Okay, roll your damage. What's the save? That's how it works out. It's not roll dice. Okay, well, I'm doing this. And it's certainly not, I'm casting fireball and throwing all your dice down. No, it's, no roll counts until the DM asks for it, is probably the better way to say that. And that's how I'd rephrase it. But thus far, I actually, for the most part, agree with most of these. 9, I will give you exhaustion more frequently. If you argue, go home and you can actually fight me over it, or you can DM yourself. This one is not one that I particularly understand as far as exhaustion. It sounds like it's more particular to their group. Like they're doing a whole bunch of stuff and just being, kind of like when you say, hey, we're not going to worry about encumbrance, which is the way I play the game. I'm not counting how much everything weighs. but you're always going to have that one person who's trying to game the system a bit, and he's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and pull the water clock out of my pack and look at this. Like, water clock? Yeah. And I've also got a wagon, and I've got 4 sets of barding for horses in my pack too. It's like, no, you don't get to carry 800 pounds of shit. You're way over encumbered. You can't even carry that. Time for some strength checks, endurance checks, et cetera, et cetera. You always got that one person who wants to do that. And that's what it kind of sounds like. They were bending the rules and stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm just going to start making you guys exhausted or fatigued. 10. Every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and paid back in triplicate. You all seem to believe there is little consequence. This is just something that needs to fix modern gaming across the board. If you keep making smart-ass comments in-game towards NPCs are real people in that world, and they should behave like real people. Number 11. You will not be given a mega dungeon every session. A temple is not the size of a small city, neither is a cave. This shit will happen when it's natural and organic. Go play roguelike if you want that. I feel this one too. You want a natural, real world, and you get these people who want to have some kind of crazy Final Fantasy dungeon under every, Final Fantasy level under every single temple, It's like, okay, I'm going into the Longhouse in the Viking settlement, and it's 500 rooms with 90 traps and all kinds of other stuff. Just doesn't make any sense. Kind of makes me think of that movie, the Tim Allen comedy, Galaxy Quest. And they go into the one room, and there's like fire shooting out of the side and a big swinging pendulum and all these gears and stuff. And they're like, what is this ship here for? And they're like, it doesn't actually have a purpose. It was just there for our characters to jump past in episode 47. 12. The travel portion is done. You want to travel continents doing literally whatever you want? Go play World of Warcraft or play D&D with AI. I get this too. Travel is part of the game. There's some stuff that needs to happen there with some random encounters and stuff. Generally, the best thing to do, I think Professor Dungeon Master actually has a really good way of handling this. At the end of the session, he always asks his players, where are you heading next? And they don't get to change that between session to session, so he knows what to prepare. This comes from the edge testers, which is just a bad form player behavior where you want to go test the edge of the world in every case. I give you a map. You always want to go to the place that's just off the map. And the reason, some of it's just natural inquisitiveness, but it's like, no, I'm giving you this area. This is where the adventures are going to be. Don't go exploring outside of that looking for the real world, because it's not the real world, and you're intentionally going to the place I didn't create. That's just bad manners and bad form, and it's not just rude to the game master, it's rude to the rest of the players to start pushing them in that direction to where they don't get to have a game that's well prepared. 13. If you're late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points for the entire session. This screams of somebody who is sick of people showing up 15, 20 minutes late. Some of us I'm an adult. I play with adults. And I show up, and it's like, we got like from 12:30 to 6 to play the game. That's all the time we get. And when people are moseying in at 2 p.m., and we've been waiting on them to get there to start, you just gobbled up everybody's game time. So that just sounds like somebody who's sick of people being rude. And, I mean, an in-game, some people say never give an in-game punishment for out-of-game behavior. I completely disagree. A lot of times an in-game punishment is the way to go, because that's the only thing they clearly care about. They clearly don't care about the rest of the people at the table. 14. If you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me alone and no one else has the guts to say shit for fear of upsetting one another, the first time you'll find yourself losing either a whole level or up to 3 major items of your own. The second time you do it in a row, you'll be removed from the chat and the group full stop. I have no fucking time for people who don't show up. This just kind of points back to the other thing. People who don't pop in, who just think that, oh, well, it's a game, so I don't care that 5 or 6 other people cut out time in their day, substantial amounts of time in their day or their weekend or whatever to be here. It's just incredibly rude. And to me, to be perfectly honest, I don't even go that far. If you just no-show and you don't have a damn good reason for it, your ass is gone right then. You don't get a second time. So I think he's actually too lenient on 14. 15. If you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without warning. Your warning is here. That kind of depends on your group, especially if you're playing online. That's just really obnoxious. If it's one person who's doing it all the time, that's really obnoxious. I mean, I've had times where my entire group was completely smashed by the end of the by the end of the session, especially back when I was in college. Not so much anymore because, once again, all adults. But it really just kind of comes down to, is this somebody who's being rude or impolite to the rest of the table because they decided that, it's more important for them to get smoked up than it is for them to do what we all came here to do. Control yourself, be an adult. 16, if you get up for a bong or smoke or whatever breaks every 10 minutes, I will simply pack up and go home. I'm sick of waiting for every bloke to be at the table. Same thing. If you don't really want to be part of the game, if you're just wanting to hang out and smoke and drink or something, then don't come. Or, if you want to play color commentary or something, as long as you can do it in a somewhat respectful fashion, hang out with the group and maybe make some comments and stuff, but don't run a player, don't run a character. But, don't hold up the table because you can't be consistent. Understand that there is, yes, this is fun, yes, it's a game, yes, it's make-believe, but yes, it is also a commitment. 17, guidance, divination spells, owls, or whatever spells I decide are too fucking stupid or banned, outright, no more fucking guidance. I think this is the first truly bad rule out of the group, because this is a game master who understands something that the players have at their disposal, and he just simply doesn't want to deal with it. There's no problem banning some of these things, but you should be able to deal with them. You don't nerf somebody's character, especially mid-campaign, just because something's become annoying for you. You make your bad guys or whoever adapt to it. Now, you also have to say, it's like, is somebody metagaming here? Are they using an excessive amount of cheese and divination and stuff to figure stuff out? Well, guess what? I got a day where they've done nothing but guidance and divination or whatever the hell it is that they're using to do all this stuff. Is really going to suck when they get nailed with a bunch of combat that they don't get to have any rests in between, and now all of a sudden their cleric has nothing meaningful prepared and can't even heal somebody. 18. You get one chance at a skill check. If you fuck up, your party doesn't get their chance to do the same check. Think carefully who's good at what. This one I disagree with. This should be based entirely on what the check is, what the timing is, and how it's done. There are some skill checks that it makes sense that you don't get to have a second chance, and there are some skill checks that make sense you don't get a second chance. You fail a persuade check, depends on how bad you fail it. If you piss that person off, maybe they're not open to being persuaded again, or maybe this check is a lot higher. You fail a lockpick check, maybe somebody else can come back and do it. Maybe you fucked up the lock and now it's permanently locked. And a lot of that's going to be situational. So such a black and white rule, I think, would be a bad one. And an overreaction to people just going down the line on skill checks. 19. Discussions of metagame details in-game will result in instant damage to your character. In what flavor of metagame? Because there's some metagaming that's just part of it. But if you're talking about in-game, I'll go back to the classic Trolls Fire example. Hey guys, we're going to be fighting trolls. Make sure you go get anything with fire. I hear fire damages them. I was like, okay, well now I'm going to hurt your character because you metagamed? No, that's just the incorrect way to handle it. One, you're going to have some metagaming that's rational. We're in a world with trolls where trolls are not some kind of super uncommon thing. There's stories about them. There's a reasonable result that they know about the fire or something. They shouldn't know that, and they're truly doing something sneaky in metagaming. They saw the troll tokens behind your DM screen or something. That's funny. In my world, trolls are actually, it's lightning that has a problem with them. They're actually fire resistant. That's what you get for metagaming. Just inflict instant damage. Change the game on them. Rules lawyering fellow players is encouraged. Actuallying me will result in me telling you to fuck off. That's at least poorly worded, but once again, I think he's kind of being tongue-in-cheek a little bit here. The little piece of good in this rule that I see is what I think is adding to it and helping explain rules to other players on how things work actually takes a load off of the game master and is helpful. But arguing with the game master when he makes a ruling is disrespectful and actually violates the core rule of all these games. This is where I can piss off some of the Bro SR folks who really like to just hammer down rules as written like it's something special. Well, I hate to tell you this. You should know this when you're obsessed with rules as written. Every single fucking edition of every single role-playing game has always said in the somewhere in their game master guide, teller's guide, player's handbook, core book, whatever you want to call it, has said something to the effect of the ultimate arbitrator is the game master, and what he says goes, and he has the ability to change whatever rule he wants whenever he wants for any reason as long as it's in service of the game. So rules as written means he's always right, so don't argue with him. If you have a serious problem, take it up on the side and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about that later. 21. You roll your dice within view of two players who aren't you. Standard. You roll them neatly and you roll them on the table. Failing to do these three things will auto-fail whatever roll you did. Arguing that you actually rolled validly when you clearly did not is an automatic critical fail. This, once again, seems to be either super tongue-in-cheek or is overly reactive to players doing just bad player behavior. Me, if I got a player who's constantly cheating all the time, doing the whole roll and snatch your die up, roll and hide it behind your hands, roll and hide it behind the books, oh, it fell on the floor, it just happened to be a natural 20, who's doing that kind of thing, I'm eventually going to probably just ask them to stop playing. Or I'm going to make adjustments to make the game harder on their character. But probably I'm just going to ask them to stop playing. I mean, because really at the end of the day, the only person you're really cheating is yourself when you cheat at these games. It's not a competitive play, so it's not like you're harming another character. There's nothing to prove here. There's no competitive game where you can have a high score. 22. Instant death traps and mechanics are coming into place. If you call these things unfair moving forward, I will laugh at you and tell you to fuck off and cry some more. This is just... It just is what it is. I will kill your characters. Don't cry about it. That's just how things go. It's perfectly fair. There's a reason why there's death mechanics in the game. Instant death is perfectly fine, especially if there's plenty of warning for it. Now, I do disagree that instant death mechanics should come about when something wasn't instant death before. And instant death mechanics with nothing to warn you ahead of time is frankly bullshit. Even the Tomb of Horrors warns characters, or rather warns players, of the kind of shit that's coming up from the very beginning. It's built into the mechanics. But no, I have no problem with instant death. 23. I will not give you random magical items, and vendors will not stock them. They are meant to be rare and hard to acquire. This one just sings to my soul. I got my 3.5 group running now. They're like, okay, well, we want to go to the magic item shop. I'm like, what magic item shop? It's a town of 600 people. Oh, and by the way, all that loot, the armor and magic items and stuff you're not going to use that you found in the dungeon, you're not going to just unload some magic sword at the local farming village that literally the sword is worth 4 times their economy. They don't have that sitting around unless you want to have a whole 4 herd of cattle and 200 head of sheep and a wagon and 14 tons of timber and 90 yards of coal or something. You ain't going to just get gold pieces from, the poor guy who literally the cost of that sword represents his entire lifetime's wealth. And no, I mean, magic items are way too common. They really kind of got to be kid in the candy store. 24. Random encounters in the form of random dragons or mysterious road traders or a band of goblin prostitutes isn't going to happen. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, random encounters are fine. I don't have a problem with them, but yeah, quit expecting some kind of craziness to appear out of nowhere that makes no sense. I think that maybe is a little bit of lazy DMing, but it also might be a little bit of overly demanding player. 25. I don't give 2 fucks what Reddit said about X or Y ruling. Yeah. I mean, this should just be kind of printed on the front of the book. What Reddit says doesn't matter. Is Reddit running this table? No, it's not, so fuck your Reddit ruling. 100% agree with that. If you don't like my ruling, go play at Reddit's table. 26. I actually give less of a fuck about what your mates and you and group did. Same thing. That's just like number 25. I do not care what Bob at the game shop ruled. I ain't Bob at the game shop, and this ain't his table. 27. Saying anything to me about other players not liking me, doing X or Y without them, and saying it directly to me will result in me kicking you out of the group. Don't use someone else to push your own agenda. Absolutely. If you got somebody who just wants to be a prick, kick them out of the group, because nobody wants to waste their time with a prick. Just get rid of them. You shouldn't have that kind of animosity between you and your players, and if they're going to be a dick like that, get rid of them. 28. You are not to sit down and have a 2-hour discussion about what Samson from Bundura Secretary did 3 weeks ago when you come to play. Take 15, 20 minutes I use to set up and review my notes to talk to each other, then sit down to play. Once again, I don't think he's talking, you can have no side comments or banter at the table or anything, but this just goes right back to being polite. Everybody, I've said it 20 or 30 times in this video, everybody showed up and gave you a big block of their time. If you got a game master with 5 players, there's 5 people at that table who gave you 6, 7, 8 hours of their time, 4 hours of their time to play this game. Do not waste it having weird sidebar conversations and stuff with one other person. Because not only does that interfere with the game, and not only is it a distraction, but you're clearly not paying attention, so you're not going to know what's going on, so you're not going to make good decisions. Then you're going to have the whole, boo-hoo, well, I didn't know that, so I want to take back my move. I wouldn't have done that if I'd have known that. That's kind of where it kind of comes into, you really can't have any backsies, because you wouldn't have needed them if you hadn't been having this side conversation. This, once again, reaction to excessive rudeness at the table. 29, saying shit like, guys, come on, we're not here to have fun, we're here to play D&D, this is serious business, is rude and dismissive of how much work I put into this. I will simply go home if I hear this shit. This sounds like he's saying, it's like saying something that's like, basically saying, oh, don't take it so seriously, when the game master's like, hey guys, come on, let's focus on the game. Oh yeah, it's not like we're here to have fun or anything. He's absolutely right. This is rude. This is dismissive of all the time and effort the game master puts in. This is entitled player bullshit. I'm a player. I'm entitled to have a fun game, and if I want to goof off during the game, it's my game, and I'm entitled to do that because it's fun. Fuck you, game master, who spent, say, 20 hours over the past 2 weeks putting this together for me. Because the general rule of thumb is if you get 8 hours of gameplay, he probably has at least 8 hours of work outside of the game putting that together if he's homebrewing. He probably has at least 4 hours if he did it reading a module or something and getting that together. So yeah, absolutely. That's dismissive, rude bullshit, and he probably should pack up and go home if that's the way you're going to behave. 30, don't fucking order food randomly. We will eat together at a specific time or not at all. I don't want food shit all over my things. I don't know where he's playing, but there's food all over every table. Actually, in my game, I actually did a video on food and what food means to the tabletop role-playing game, and why because this is a social event for everybody, and food is love. Food is part of the social interaction. But that said, you shouldn't be a jackass or a jerk about it. If you're getting Cheeto dust and shit all over his, books and whatnot, don't be a slob, have a care, keep your stuff in your area, and just, don't be a dick. It's the same thing ever. The greatest rule in all tabletop role-playing games, don't be a dick. 31. No food or drinks near any of my D&D gear. If you wreck something, you can pay for it. I let one person trash my DM screen once, and I never had it replaced by them. In fact, I had that person attempt to gaslight me into believing they didn't wreck my shit at all. I'm not stupid. You're an adult. Accept responsibility. Kind of plays back into the other one. If you damage somebody else's property and you try to no, I didn't, and run off on it, you just need to be asked to leave. He's exactly right. You're an adult. People need to behave like adults. Take responsibility both in game and out of game. If you tear up somebody's shit, take care of it. Christ, why does that even need to be said, and why is anybody acting like he's a dick for putting it in? 32. Arguments between party members outside of roleplay will be resolved by me giving the definite ruling. If you don't like it, fuck off back home. Once again, 100% correct. Outside of roleplay, obviously, where the two characters are arguing, if players have a disagreement and the game master makes a ruling, guess what? Rule 0. The game master is right. What he says goes. If you don't like it, go play somewhere else. Or suck it up, because he'll probably make a ruling later that you really like that somebody else doesn't like. Because you can't please everybody all the time. 33. I don't give a fuck what they did in Critical Role, or what one guy on Reddit said, or if you think that it's all make-believe so you can do what you want. The world I run works on internal rulings and lore I created specifically for it. Once again, preach. This is 100% correct. The only people who have a problem with this are the people who are the assholes who violate it. I had this situation come up before. Now, granted, me and my group were just like, hey, we don't think you're the right group for this. But I got a guy who's wanting to be the cleric of some weird sex deity and is part of some sex cult and wants to be a weird cat person, tiefling hybrid or something. And I'm like, yeah, none of that exists in this world, dude. We're not doing that. We're doing standard Greyhawk deities, and I'm only doing that for shorthand so I don't have to name and craft all of these and explain them to you. This is the world and what goes on in it, and that doesn't fit. And it's like, no, that's not the table for you. Because none of the stuff you want to do is going to be there. And I guarantee you he would have wanted to try and do stuff that he saw on some stream or something. And when I say no, he's going to get mad about it. Well, my world. And it's literally the one thing that the GM gets to have is agency over the world. 34. Every single person in this chat is having debuffs applied to their characters that should have occurred a long time ago. This will be specific to characters. This, once again, sounds specific to his table. Sounds like maybe he played too powerful you got a bunch of power gamers who are doing a bunch of cheese. Honestly, I don't think you should debuff the characters. Just find ways around the cheese or tailor stuff specifically to your group to make it more challenging, so it's not such a pain in the ass. This is also a big problem with 3.5 with 5th edition, because in 5th edition, players are just way too tanky, way too tough, way too strong. That just sounds like he needs more experience as a game master. Honestly, that's a bad ruling. Once again, you don't go in unless it's something seriously critical and some serious screw up. You don't go in and just yank stuff from somebody's character in the middle of a campaign. You make the adjustments, and on the next campaign or the next adventure, you say, hey, for this, I'm adjusting things this way. That way, you're not taking away something that somebody had, just yanking the rug out from under them. You're telling them before they ever start that this isn't going to happen. 35, if you don't bring your sheet, you don't play. Yeah, it is kind of annoying. Have your shit together. 36, if you don't bring dice, borrow some. Same thing. It's really annoying. Goes right back to the common thread that I've had here. Very rude. All these people are dedicating time to play the game with you, and you're infringing on everybody's enjoyment, and you're really slapping them all in the face when you show up not ready to go. 37, when we play D&D, I'm not your friend. This doesn't mean you treat me like an enemy during the game. It means I'm no longer, quote, being nice. I don't agree with this one at all. I think this is definitely a lash out of anger thing. It's presented very poorly, unless he's once again intentionally trying to be like aggressive or tongue-in-cheek. But what I get from this and where I think it comes from is don't sit here and when I make a ruling in the game that hurts you, act like I'm not your friend anymore. And like somehow this is a play on our friendship and I thought we were better than that, man. I can't believe you did that to me. It's like, no, I made a ruling in the game that made sense and your imaginary character got hurt by it. I'm not doing something to spite you out of some kind of vitriol in the real world. I mean, understand that when we're playing, I have a responsibility to everybody at the table to run the game fair and consistent. And sometimes that means you lose. And yeah, you're my buddy, but I'm not bending the rules just because you're my buddy. They're all my buddies too. 38, if you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form, after or during or before the game due to something that happened in game, you're out. You cannot separate the game from reality. I think you're a fucking moron, and I have little time to deal with that energy. Once again, 100% true. Very harshly worded. Not gonna win friends and influence people, but if you're treating the game master like a piece of shit, like he should just cater to you and everything, you probably do need to be asked to move, especially if you're dogging him because he did something to your imaginary character in game. 39, you will submit your spell list daily in game. If you don't give me a spell list in each game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or cantrip in combat. I do not trust you guys not to use this against me. Alright, this once again comes down to player trust, playing with the wrong group. I trust everybody in my group not to cheat. If they make a mistake, it's going to be an honest one. But I've seen it before, and I would do this like if I were going to run a game at a con or something. You're going to give me your spell list ahead of time. And the reason you're going to do it is because there are classes that spontaneous casting is their advantage, and you are cheating them of that advantage by more or less making yourself a spontaneous caster. You have to think ahead. I mean, that's part of the strategy of the game and part of the fun of the game. And once again, in general, the only one you're cheating is yourself. 40. If you do not mark off spell slots, or you say something like, I remember what I'm at, as a way to justify it, I will simply fail your spell. Deal half your health and human damage, or say you have no spells to cast for the rest of the day. Once again, this kind of goes back to dishonest, cheating characters that kind of want to always win and are cheating themselves. Sounds like you just need a new group. But yeah, I mean, you get these childish players who just want to always win, like you can win Dungeons and Dragons, and they pull this kind of crap. You just need a new group. There's no need to do this. You shouldn't have to make half of these. If you're playing at a con or something, once again, I get it. It's like you're going to submit a spells list and you're going to do your spell slots. And if you're cheating, you're just going to be asked to leave. 41, if you break literally anything, you can buy the replacement that day and not attend till you do. That is perfectly reasonable. You break somebody else's stuff, you're not welcome at the table until you've replaced it. That's just taking responsibility, and it's the right thing to do. Especially because you might have a week or 2 weeks before that. If it's something really expensive or difficult to replace, make some arrangements or stuff. But as a general rule of thumb, you knock my lamp over, you need to pay for my lampshade. 42. If you complain about the choice of music, I fully expect you to bring the whole playlist to the next session or shut the fuck up. Alright, I don't do music during my games. I find it distracting. The only one who should be picking music is the game master. If your players are complaining about a playlist or something, just don't bring music. I certainly wouldn't have them bring the playlist. That'd be a disaster. End up having the Britney Spears campaign. But I get where it's coming from. I see it, the kind of tongue-in-cheek, smarmy way he's saying. It's like, look, if you don't like the music, make your own playlist. It's not like I spent hours making this playlist that I thought went well with this game. Right back to the just be a fucking decent human being and don't be a prick. 43, cannot stress enough how little I care about how you feel about my rulings from now on. This is just a repeat of several of the other ones. Rule 0. Oh, and Rule 44, I'm never just threatening you, I'm promising you. Once again, I think he's just being kind of smarmy and smart about things, but it's just one of those deals where it's like, just be a decent human being. Alright, guys. That is all 44 rules, and we're fast approaching 44 minutes. We're 40-something minutes into this before editing. So I'm going to go ahead and button that up there. I appreciate you sticking around for all 44. Hopefully I didn't blow through them too fast and didn't stumble over myself too much. This is very much stream of consciousness, just reading them and firing them off. Hopefully I'll see you guys again here soon. Like, share, and subscribe. I will see you guys next time.